Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will teach you dialogue writing. In my previous video, you have learned story writing. So as you know, creative thinking and creative writing involves use of imagination in organized way. It is important to be creative in communication. We usually think that imagination means to be without restriction. However, imaginative and creative writing is planned and structured activity. Also, one can learn the skill and perfect it by practice. Realistic dialogue written well can advance a story and flesh out characters while providing a break from straight exposition. Writing realistic dialogue does not come easily for everyone, though, and few things pull a reader out of a story faster than bad dialogue. It takes time to develop a good ear for dialogue, but following some simple rules and avoiding some obvious pitfalls can make a huge difference. So without any further delay, let's get into the video. Let's see the simple rules of dialogue writing. So first we have listen to how people talk. So you have to listen very carefully how people talk. So having a sense of natural speech patterns is essential to good dialogue. You have to pay attention to the expressions people use and the music of everyday conversation by paying attention to the way people talk. You have to note how people can maintain conversations without complete sentences and sometimes by even finishing other sentences. Eavesdropping is not a crime, so go ahead and listen to how people communicate with one another. Then second point you have, don't be 100% realistic. So you don't have to be 100% realistic. People talk in stops and starts and they pause without nonsense words like and Frequently, they talk over one another. As much as you're trying to emulate realistic speech patterns, the dialogue still needs to be readable. As Alfred Hitchcock said, a good story is life with the dull parts taken out. And this very much applies to dialogue. A transcription of a conversation would be boring and confusing. So give readers only what matters. Edit out filler words and unessential commentary that doesn't contribute to the plot in some way. Then third, don't give too much information at once. So you don't have to give the too much information when you just start the story or when you just start writing the dialogue. It should never be obvious to readers that they are being fed important facts. Let the story unfold naturally. Readers can be trusted to remember details from earlier in the story. So you don't have to rush to tell them everything all at once. People who know each other leave a lot unsaid. So exposition still be necessary to share some important facts. Then fourth you have break up dialogue with action. So remind readers that your characters are physical human beings by grounding their dialogue in the physical world. Such details also help break up the words on the page. It can be as simple as referencing that characters are standing on the deck of a cabin cruiser. Long periods of dialogue are easier for readers when broken up by descriptions. The same holds true for long periods of description. They need to be broken up with dialogue. Then the fifth rule is don't overdo dialogue tags. So veering too much beyond he said or she said only draws attention to the tags and you want readers focused on your compelling dialogue, not your ability to think of synonyms for said. You also need to trust that readers will be able to follow the conversation without attribution after each statement when it is part of a back and forth conversation between characters. Then sixth rule is stereotypes, profanity and slang. So be aware of falling back on stereotypes and be sure to use profanity and slang sparingly or you risk distracting or alienating your readers. Anything that takes readers out of the fictional world that you're working hard to create should be avoided. Then the seventh rule is you have to read widely. Pay attention to why things work or don't work when you're reading. Take the time to note examples of when you're taken out of a story's action and then try to identify why. Where did you stop believing in a character? Or when did the character really jump off the page and how did the dialogue help accomplish that? And again, note when this happens and try to identify what the writer was doing to achieve this. In other words, start reading like a writer. Then the eighth rule is you have to punctuate dialogue correctly. The rules for punctuating dialogue can be confusing. Many writers need help getting them right, especially in the beginning. So take some time to learn the basics. A reader should get lost in your prose. You may have written beautiful dialogue, but you don't want the reader stumbling over it because it's hard to follow due to missing or misplaced commas. Let's look at the ninth rule. You have to cut to the chase. So cutting greetings and other small talk is a great place to start paring down your dialogue. If you omit all the hellos and goodbyes, you get your characters into the scene faster and allow them to start telling your story through language and action. Let's look at the rule number 10. Keep it short. So try to keep each instance of dialogue to one sentence. When you get to the second sentence, it's likely your character has become an explainer, delivering expository information instead of acting as a dynamic, believing character. Anytime you find yourself giving a character multiple sentences of dialogue, ask yourself if there's a natural way to put all the important information into one sentence. Or see if it can be broken up and inserted into a few different places in the conversation. You can also see if another character can deliver some of the information. Rule number 11. Let it flow. When you write the first draft of a scene, let the dialogue flow. Pour it out like cheap champagne. You can make it sparkle later, but first you have to get it down on paper. This technique will allow you to come up with lines you probably would never have thought of if you try to get it right the first time. And rule number 12, that is the last rule, be an improvisational actor. So in the privacy of your own home, improvise a scene as though you're both characters in this scene. If the two characters are in conflict, start an argument. Allow a slight pause as you switch, giving yourself time to come up with a response in each character's voice. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this English video on dialogue writing and learned a lot. So you can continue studying with me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching.